Welcome back, radio entrepreneurs, listeners, and fans. I'm producer Nathan Gobes, filling in for regular host Jeffrey Davis this morning. I'm excited to bring you back with another wonderful guest. This is Nils Menten, CEO of Imarc. Welcome, Nils.
Thank you, Nathan. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. Why don't you start by telling our audience about Imarc, what it is you guys do, and we'll go from there.
Sure, absolutely. Imarc is what we call a digital agency, a full-service digital agency. We're located north of Boston, a little town called Amesbury, Massachusetts. We serve primarily business-to-business customers, mostly regional, although we do have some national accounts that we work with. Some of our larger, better-known accounts include a company called BreezeLine, formerly Atlantic Broadband. We've done cool projects for Red Bull, Motorola, Sprint, but a lot of regional and smaller B2B and tech-focused companies is probably our sweet spot. That's where we do most of our work.
Great. How long have you been doing this, and when did you start the company? And I have several questions with that. So let's start
Sure.
there.
I chuckle when that comes up because it seems so long. It's actually 24 years. I started the company in 1997, and it's been 24 and change years since we began. And we've been through obviously quite a lot of changes during that time, along with our industry.
Great. Yeah, that is a long run. What's your background? As Jeffrey would say, let's get in the Wayback Machine,
Oh
um,
boy.
which is a reference to a show before my time. But tell me what brought you to start Imarc and your background.
Well, like many entrepreneurial stories, it turned out a little differently than been set out. My background, when I was a young man, I wanted to be a photographer, and that led to a career in photo labs, and that in turn begat a career in digital imaging when that industry transitioned from silver-based imaging to digital. As we were exploring digital imaging, we had some customers that wanted to do a better job of managing their archives of images. And the first one that we worked with on this project was actually Bose, the folks that make wonderful speakers and headphones. And
Hmm.
so with a close collaborator at the photo lab, come digital lab that I worked at, or I was actually the vice president, general manager, we developed a digital system for managing archives of photographs, which doesn't sound novel right now, but that was 1993. And so when we showed that to Bose, it literally blew their minds, and they were very excited to say, wow, what else could we do with this? This unlocks all kinds of good potential. And we developed a very robust solution that we had really ready to go in 1995. The funny part of the story, and that many entrepreneurs will recognize in their own experience, Bose never bought it from us. It collapsed under its own weight with all the stakeholders that they brought in, and they never executed on the project. But we had this thing very well baked. And Starwood Hotels, which was actually called ITT Sheraton at the time, they came along and said, we have this problem of needing to manage big archives of images. How can you help us? We said, hold that thought. And we went and we demonstrated the Bose system, but with their images, with Sheraton's images. And we won that business in 1990, I want to say five. That product became the seed that became Imarc years later. And in fact, when Marriott bought Starwood Hotels, we went along with them. We still have that client to this day. We still work with Marriott Hotels, manage an archive that now comprises millions of digital assets. And we have now spanning the other years for 26 years. So that was our foundation client.
Great. And you and I exchanged some emails before this about what you wanted to talk about, and I think that story transitions us well as you were working with organizations on a digital transformation for their images, and I know digital transformation is what you wanted to talk about, which I think is a great topic. Many businesses have to deal with coming out of the Stone Age, so to speak, and adapting to digital systems. So why don't you talk to our listeners about that?
I think that's a perfect segue there, Nathan, because that really was what was at stake for Sheraton and at Marriott, in that finding ways to be more competitive, more efficient, more effective in their operations by leveraging digital tools. And that has meant different things for different companies. We've worked with thousands of different companies over all these years. And if you were to boil it down, I would say it all came down to that. How can they use digital online web tools to make their businesses more efficient, to reach more customers? And that's taken different forms. In the case of Sheraton, of course, it was help us manage this giant archive of images and logos and digital assets to be more efficient, to be better at marketing. That was the genesis of that tool. For other customers, like we did a lot of work with a lot of membership associations. It was, how can we better serve our members? How can we deliver professional development and educational courses through the internet without requiring people to come in person where we're having friction? And for other companies, it's been marketing based, or it's been member service or customer service, reducing the cost of providing great customer service. And so digital transformation really becomes about, how do we apply our skills, our knowledge, our expertise to help companies solve problems, do a better job of serving their customers, make more money, be more efficient.
That does make sense. I know many organizations over the years may have been slow to adapt to new technology, but I think especially in this day and age, where many organizations have been have to now operate remotely, it becomes blatantly obvious how important these systems are. You gave that one example of, I think it was golf clubs golf courses that moved to a digital tracking system rather than having people come in person, which, this day and age would be very difficult for people. Do you have any other examples of ways that you've worked with organizations on digital transformation?
Well, education is a big one, and that thread runs through a lot of different organizations. And I think this was new ground to break 15 years ago, and now it's like, well, of course we can have education online, and it's happening at schools in some ways, in very rudimentary ways through just Zoom and online curricula, but it's happening in very sophisticated ways with companies like Salesforce or even HubSpot, leaders in CRM systems and related, that provide the front line of training and support and the growing of their ecosystem through online training and support. So education, I think, is probably a really great example, but we can pick a half a dozen from our experience in ways that has enabled and empowered entirely new ways of doing business and expanding the reach of companies to find new customers outside of what had been historically their geographic limitations.
That makes sense. I know on the education side, at least when I was in school, you'd receive a textbook, and inside the front cover was a little CD or DVD of some online classes that were always sort of an afterthought. But obviously, again, in the pandemic, now that's the front runner of academia. So it is interesting how both societal shifts, things going on in the world, have forced digital transformation, but also just the proliferation of technology.
Here we are on a Zoom call having a really effective meeting and collaboration on this interview. We would have been in person 2 years ago.
Of course.
And as you said, the pandemic only accelerated the pace of change. And it only, freed up budgets. We're not traveling, so we're spending money on ways to enable digital. And my little company is no different. When it became clear that we would not be returning to the office in numbers, we said, well, then why are we recruiting from our geographic area close to us? Let's throw it open to nationwide recruiting. We did this in the fall of 2020. And the result of that was that we found more and better candidates that we were really successful onboarding, and they're on equal footing with everyone else in the company that's working remote as we stay safe and we stay home in our dens. And so it's had a silver lining. It's accelerated the pace of change, as you mentioned, and in our case, it's brought us more and better talent that's made the agency better, made us more successful.
That makes sense. As we continue forward, where do you think you see digital transformation heading in the future? What do you think companies and business owners might expect to be prepared for, or should be prepared for?
Well, I don't think anyone's going to be in a hurry to go back to business as usual from 2 years ago. I think we've unlocked some new potential and some new possibilities. And I think the people that staff our companies have also unlocked new possibilities for their lives, and they don't want to go back either. And so I think, if anything, the genie will not go back in the bottle as far as in-person work. And I think that will continue to drive growth. I think things that are low-hanging fruit for efficiency become good targets for software as a service, platforms that enable companies to do specific things. And you see niches on everything. We spoke with a company recently, and there, it was actually a foundation who has a scholarship fund, and they fund scholarships for a local group. And they were like, we have this challenge of trying to manage these scholarships and these applications and these applicants online. And they were interested in a custom web solution. And we looked at it with them and we said, it's a software as a service. There's wonderful platforms that are exactly tuned for your exact needs, and they're way more efficient use of your money and your time, and you'll get a more mature product. And we think that's where you belong. I think you'll see more and more platforms that, driven by things like Salesforce or even HubSpot, that enable online commerce, that enable collaboration across time zones and space, and make companies and small organizations. I think it's now where once it was the province of large companies to build bespoke, crazy things on SAP or even Salesforce, big, heavy iron, one-of-a-kind things, Oracle. Those were expensive. Those required a lot of in-house expertise. They took years to implement, and they were expensive to maintain. That's no longer the case. There's a lot of opportunity for smaller organizations to be very efficient using software tools, either bespoke ones that we create or integrating them with their websites, software as a service offerings that are really powerful, really effective.
That's great.
There's opportunity for small companies to look to adopt technology that was really past the adoptability point for them in terms of cost and complexity in the past.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think a lot of, as you said, smaller organizations think about these digital tools as something that's only for the big players. But do you have any closing comments for small organizations or organizations of any size that are hesitant or slow to jump on? They've maybe been hearing about new tools, but they said, well, maybe it's not the right time. I'm very busy right now with everything going on in the pandemic. I just can't get it into my bandwidth at the moment. Do you have any advice for people that are on the fence?
I think all of us that have run companies for a while, it's incumbent on us to step back every now and then and evaluate how we do business and how we operate. And the way we've always done it isn't necessarily the path forward. And so giving yourself the benefit of an outsider's perspective or a clean sheet approach to solving business problems or meeting your strategic goals for growth or for efficiency or to be more competitive, take a fresh look. There's opportunity now, come out of the pandemic, come out of the growth of an adoption of technology to be a better company, to be more efficient, to serve more customers. And I think companies are well served to look after it, to look into it.
That's great. Thank you. If listeners or viewers want to find out more about Imarc or get your help, whether it be for digital transformation or anything else, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
We're a digital agency, and so our website would be really the best place to start at www.imarc.com, imarc.com. You can learn a little bit about us and some of the industries that we have found a niche in, and also some of our experience, and get in touch, and we'll be right back in touch with you and talk about your project.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Nils Menten, CEO of Imarc. Nils, I want to thank you again for joining our show today.
Nathan, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, for me as well. I want to ask all our listeners to, of course, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow us on YouTube, as well as all our social media platforms. We're posting content every single day, and all of your comments and follows really are really appreciated, and we thank you. We'll be back with more on Radio Entrepreneurs after this break.